Welcome to the Profitable Farmer podcast, where we share stories and tips to help you run a better farming business and create your very own freedom farm. If you're looking to work smarter and not harder in your farm business, welcome. You're in the right place. G'day everyone, welcome again to Profitable Farmer. I hope you're well and I hope this season is breaking for you, or very shortly too. Thinking of you all. I was lucky enough to spend some time again with Tracy Seacombe in our last episode, and wonderful to reflect on that conversation. I thought just to back that up, I'd reach out to our CEO, Sam Johnsson, to join us and to have a conversation just to update you all on where FOA's at and where we're off to, and also just to touch on one or two really key principles that we think that might really support you, given where we're at in industry and with the season, and with some of the decision points that we're navigating at the moment. So Sam, as always, great to have you with us. Thanks for your time and for joining us on Profitable Farmer.
Thanks, Hutch. Great to be here and welcome everyone. Great to be spending some time with you today.
How are you, Sam?
Going well, mate. In the middle of getting ready for our next lot of events. So top producers in the sunny coast and the deep dive events for our Platinum Mastermind members, which is 2 days of intense education. This one's all on Objectively Measure, Hutch, which is making great decisions with the numbers.
Yeah, perfect, Sam. And it's such an important one of our 9 deep dives, and really looking forward to that one. Sam, you're arriving to 3 years with Farm Owners Academy. How do you reflect on the last 3 years and your journey with us so far?
It's been a incredible last 3 years, Jeremy. 10 years in corporate and then making the decision to step out and join Farm Owners Academy has been a very good decision for us. And I feel very grateful to be part of this community and working with such a great group of people in our Farm Owners Academy team, but also the community of farmers that we work with are just amazing people, Hutch, and all striving to do better in their business and support each other to do better in their business. So it is a real privilege to be in this business.
What do you think makes this project and this community unique, Sam? And how do you reflect on it being different to other businesses, other communities?
Probably the biggest thing I think makes it unique is just the holistic focus that's there, Hutch, around what it takes to run a great business, and really not just focusing on the technical skills that result in farming, but also the hard skills in business around knowing your numbers and how to lead and manage people and some of those sorts of things. But really tuning into what is the mindset of a winning entrepreneur and what are the things you need to do in your personal life, and how can you set yourself up for success, not just in your business, but in your whole life. And I think that's pretty unique in terms of this project.
I agree, Sam. And I think for me, I love the concept of a mastermind, that, we can go it alone in business and try and sort this out for ourselves. I think about accounting firms and financial planning firms and law firms where their clients don't collaborate and don't know each other. I'm sure our accounting firm has thousands of clients, but I don't know any of them. Yet the thing that I think is key to this project is that our community and our clients are absolutely engaged in each other's success and actively involved in supporting each other to achieve goals and pursue improvement and to analyze decisions. And there's real power in that, and that is what underpins a mastermind, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of the things that's great about agriculture is at the end of the day, you're not really competing with each other. You should be thinking about competition, or how do we help each other to succeed, because the market's so much bigger than we can supply individually. And every now and then you might come up against your neighbour or someone in your district when you're buying for a piece of land. But once again, if you've got a scarcity mindset around that, you're missing out on so much opportunity versus how do we work together to be more profitable and have a bigger share of the pie each, and make the pie bigger for everyone.
Sam, how has Farm Owners Academy changed? How do you reflect on how this business has grown in terms of its reach, but also just in terms of our team over your 3 years?
So 3 years ago, Hutch, we were in the middle of COVID, which I'm glad feels like a distant memory. So joining, trying to, we had our Victorian members couldn't get across borders to events. And then we in the first year I was here, we ran one of our 2-day events. We flipped it to a completely virtual event within a week and a half, I think it was, before the event, because everyone got locked down in their states. So very glad that those restrictions have gone and that we're able to get the community together in person and really experience each other in that way, which is fantastic. But the business itself, Hutch, I think when I joined was 9 or 10 team members. And so it's been a journey of growth over the last 3 years, and we're now supporting a much bigger community, and the team's expanded and the caliber of the team's expanded as well. And we're now sort of around 25 people in our team, and just feel really privileged to work with the farmers that we do.
I totally agree, Sam. Just to acknowledge you for a moment, I think you've led that growth just absolutely superbly. And yet to take a business from 9 to 25 and to do it and build out the systems and the structures that support this business. But I don't think we've compromised on the quality of how we turn up to our community and how we turn up to our members. And to support the development of this team, I think we really are a high-performing outfit doing pretty significant things. I just want to say sincerely congratulations and thank you for your leadership over the last 3 years.
Thank you, Hutch. I think one of the cool things to watch when you've got a growing team is to allow everyone to move into their genius. And that's one of the things I love about this business at the moment, and the people we have in it, is watching them grow and flourish and develop as employees themselves, and to really challenge themselves to be better at what they do, and to take opportunities that exist within our business. So it is very rewarding.
I agree. Sam, what does it mean to help people arrive into their genius? You think about our farming families, there might be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 in the team, and they might be doing anywhere between 15 and 115 different things. What does it mean to actually help people in a team structure arrive into, or at least towards, their genius?
I think it starts, Hutch, with really understanding your accountability chart or your organisational chart, and what are the functions or roles in the business that need to be delivered to get a great outcome for the business. And we've got to start with those functions first, and then the people second is my view. So that's part one. Once you're clear on those seats in the business and what those 4 or 5 things are that they're responsible for, each of those seats, then you can set about determining who's the best kind of person to support that role. And for me, it's about acknowledging that everyone's different, and our differences is what makes us stronger as a team. So helping people identify what they do better than anyone else, and what it is that's different about them, and how that fits within the team that we have, and the different roles that the business needs, and helping them go and play to their strengths and support, themselves in the other areas with people who are better than that at them and enjoy doing it more than they do.
Yeah, great comment, Sam. I love the concept that there's 3 things that I do that contribute about 90% of the value that I can bring to a business or a team. And to our listeners, it's the same for you. There's 3 things that you do that can contribute 80 or 90% of the value that you can bring to your business. Yet, if we just let the business unfold in front of us, there's probably 50 or 60 things that you're doing. I think about a surgeon as an example, Sam, where the best things that a surgeon can do normally is operating, finding the next people to operate on, and checking the people that they just operated on. But everything else in their business, they don't do. They've found ways to bring people in to really focus in on the other key areas of their business. So a great thing to do, and I think starting at the top of the business and working down, is to look at what are the 3 things that if I just focused on those, that we would be leveraged and able to pursue growth. And then what is the team structure, to your point, Sam, the accountability chart or the team structure that this business needs so that we can sustainable and underpin growth long term. What's your comment there, Sam, on how our farming families might be able to achieve that?
It's a great point, Hutch, and I think it really is where it needs to start. And I think it's where we see a lot of conflict, happen in farming families, and family business. It is hard. Family business is hard. And it's made more complicated when there's no structure in the business. And, we talk about getting the governance right in the business first and understanding what the role of the owners are versus what's the role of the CEO. And then, when you're playing perhaps or wearing a different hat as, might be a machinery operator, might be part of your role as well, is knowing which role and which hat you're wearing and when to have which conversation. And, muddled in there is you're married to the person that you work with. And when you're disappointed with the conversation you've had during the day, you don't get to go and debrief it at night time with that person. So it is more complicated for farming families, but I feel that governance piece really does help you get you 80 or 90% of the way.
Sam, what happens in a business when they haven't defined who the CEO is? Because I think the other thing that happens in a family business is that they haven't actually made a decision around that. And so what would be your comment to farming families that haven't really clarified who the chief is?
I'm very strong on this, Hutch, and it's one of the first things that we ask our members when they come into Farm Owners Academy. And if you haven't worked this out yet and you're in our Platinum program, I'd encourage you to stop and really challenge yourself on who should be in this role. But if you don't have anyone in the CEO role, Hutch, what happens is, everyone's left pointing at each other when things aren't getting done. And I think there's really two things that I see the CEO is responsible for, if you want to break it down to what it is that they do in the business. The first one is that they make a profit, or that they deliver a profit for the business, and ensure that the business is able to do that. And the second one is that they have the right people in the right seats doing things right. So there's a whole heap of stuff that flows from that. They've got to make sure that there's a good strategy for the business, that they're doing the quarterly planning and the annual planning, that the team, they've got the right team roles defined, and that they've found the people to come in and run the team, that they're training and developing the people that work there, that they're clear on what the profit drivers are for the business and what levers they can pull in a given season. So there's a lot to do in that seat. And, really one person needs to be responsible. You might seek support and guidance and advice from others in the business, but someone has to make the final decision.
I think so often we pay lip service to that role, Sam. We think that the key thing is production and operations, and absolutely getting timeliness and those things is right. But then we reference the office and bookkeeping, But you've just listed out setting strategy, being able to make sure your org chart's right, that you've got the right people in the right seats, that they're supported with good systems and structures. To your point, it's a really important role. And the farms that we're running, they're significant projects. And I think sometimes we pay lip service to the significance or the size of the businesses we're running and that role that is needed to lead a business like that well.
Yeah, well, most farm businesses, are operating multi-million-dollar businesses, Hutch. They're big businesses, and they're in control of tens of millions of dollars worth of assets. And so as a CEO, you need to be focused on are we good with our money? Are we making the most out of the season that we've got in front of us? And some of those strategic decisions that you make are worth much more than the hourly rate that you might go and make in the paddock. The negotiation with the supplier around getting a better rate, for example, ringing your bank up and figuring out how to get a better interest rate. Some of that stuff can be worth far more than some of the things you might go and do out in the paddock.
And what I love is seeing the farming women in our industry or in our community who are coming back into the family farm, and just seeing them step into the CEO role and just how much value they add. It might be that the farmer, the husband, just wants to focus on production and nailing that piece. But what's your comment to the women in our community who are turning up and absolutely nailing this role in the business?
Yeah, I think it's really, really important, Hutch. And there's we've got so many great women in agriculture and in our community. And one of the things that I see is a consistent theme for the high performing businesses in our farm, whether it be women or men in the business, is that they each understand what their strengths are, and they work really well together as a team, as a family unit, and they play to their strengths. And it's often a lot of women in agriculture might have been working in other industries beforehand, and they bring back a different skill set into the farming, and that's what makes them unique in their role. And they're able to bring those skills in and really, improve the professionalism of the farm business.
So left field question, Sam. So often we find ourselves having the wrong conversations or the right conversations, but at the wrong time. So, we have a meeting and then we follow it up over the dinner table, or, we're having a board level conversation in the bedroom before we turn the lights off at night. Would you mind just speaking to the communication rhythm that we recommend, and, what tips have you got for husband and wife farming teams about how to cascade the conversations that they have so they're having the right conversations at the right time?
It's inevitable that there'll be crossover at some stage, and just acknowledging that that's going to happen and being okay that it happens as a starting point, Hutch. I think it can be helpful to have pre-agreed cue or way that you're gonna respond to something in a positive way when perhaps the wrong conversation's being had, or the right conversation's being had at the wrong time. And it might be a touch on the shoulder, or a phrase that you've pre-agreed that just means we're going to let that go now, and we're going to deal with it at the right time. So I think the rhythm that we talk about is that rhythm of quarterly planning and annual planning. So setting up for the year, having a clear strategy, breaking it back to goals that you're going to achieve each quarter, and then coming together every quarter and resetting the goals for the next 90 days. So that's the quarterly planning rhythm. Having a regular weekly team meeting that you can save up those items for, and you can have a discussion about those key things. And I feel it can really be helpful as well, once you started getting a bit bigger team, to have a leadership meeting weekly and get aligned as an ownership cohort first as to what are the key priorities in our business at the moment, what are the risks that we see, just so that you're not always having those conversations over dinner or that sort of thing. You create space for them in your week, and you prioritize that conversation at that time. And then having a discussion about what are our boundaries around work, when is family time, and when would we like to shut off. And I think it's hard when your office is the kitchen table, or it's in the house. A lot of our members will prioritize building an office down at the shed, Hutch, or creating a space detached from the house to go and be your office, so that when you're at work and when you're at home.
Yeah, it's great comments, Sam. Thank you. And that rhythm has absolutely underpinned FOA's growth. But gosh, the clients of ours in our community that are doing that really strongly, they just completely moved from feeling reactive in their business to being able to feel like they're in control and genuinely proactive around the direction that they're taking and that they're aligned to.
Yeah, if you can achieve, 1 to 3 strategic things a quarter in your business, by the end of the year, you've done, 4 to 12 really important things to move the business forward. And that's more than a lot of people achieve in 4 or 5 years in their business.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. So one of the concepts that our leadership team talk about, and I think you've introduced this to us from a book that you read by Dan Sullivan. Now, Dan Sullivan is the strategic coach, and I think he's probably one of the most respected business coaches on the planet. Coaches a lot of elite CEOs and a lot of fast growing companies. The gap and the gain. Would you mind just speaking broadly to that book, Dan Sullivan, and the gap and the gain?
Yeah, so I think do yourselves a favour, read any book that Dan Sullivan has put out in the last 4 or 5 years with Benjamin Hardy. I think it's a very great insight into what it takes to run a great business, and some of the things that perhaps hold us back as business owners. And Dan and Benjamin Hardy have done a great job of communicating those in those books. And the gap and the gain, Hutch, really the concept is it fits in beautifully with objectively measure, where we talk about measuring in our business and making decisions with the numbers. But it's really looking at how do we measure everything in our life, and how does that affect how we feel about what we're doing. And And so when we're measuring things, we can set goals, and we sort of, have these aspirations of things we're trying to achieve in the future as entrepreneurs. But if we're measuring in the gap, so between where we are now and what our goal is, we're in the gap, is what Dan says. And so we feel stressed and frustrated that we are not making progress, and we can start feeling shame about where we're currently at, where versus where we should be, and dissatisfaction with our current reality, and all those sorts of things. And the challenge is that when you get to the goal, then you set another goal, and so the goal just keeps moving forward like the horizon, and you kind of never get there. So you go through life and business feeling dissatisfied with your current progress and your current reality all the time. So that's the gap. And so what Dan suggests is that it's not having the goal that's the problem. The goal is great. It gets us in motion and it helps us achieve the things we want to in our life. But what Dan talks about is the problem is the way we measure. So if we can flip that unit of measurement from measuring the gap, and we measure in the gain, and we focus on looking at where did we start versus where are we now, that it builds confidence, and we can see that our confidence grow as we continue to develop, and we feel positive about achievement, and we look at creating wins every day. And it really is, puts you in a positive mindset around the progress you're making, because at the end of the day, the goals, it takes about 3 seconds to set a goal, but it takes a lot longer to achieve it. And if we're not focused on the progress we're making, then our chances of sticking with the goal are pretty slim.
It's a cracking concept, isn't it? So we can often feel genuinely unhappy if we're constantly comparing where we are compared to where we want to get to. And in the gap, we can feel disappointed because we're not there. We can feel this. Now, he talks about not enoughness because we're never there. And I think, to your point, it's really important and healthy to have the goal, but we need to be careful of our level of attachment to the goal. Sam, last episode, I spoke to Tracy about identity and about, how that can be, our confidence and our identity can kind of, a sense of self, if you like, can go up and down with the seasons. For me, I think if we are giving real weight and real focus to the progress we've made, this is where we started, and in our journey, here's the achievements that we've had. It has to set us up, doesn't it, to be more resilient and to be more confident in the moment, in spite of the seasons that are playing out in front of us. Would you agree?
Yeah, completely agree. I completely agree, Hutch. And, one of the things we do in Pharma is we're always start each meeting with what was the win for last week, or what's the win since the last meeting. And, a win can be something that's gone well. A win can also be something that hasn't gone well, but we've learned something from. And, I think that's one of the things that you have to get, encourages you to get better at when you start measuring in the gain, is going, well, if it didn't feel like a win, what did I learn from what's happened in the last week or fortnight or month? And how can I do things differently next time? And, because we only fail if we stop moving forward and we stop learning from what's happening.
So I love how he talks also about the fact that if we compare ourselves to others, or even focus on who it is that we might be competing with, that lands us in the gap as well, and that those two constructs don't serve us. So I think, in addition, we've got to be careful comparing ourselves to other people's goals or other people's businesses or other people's definition of ideal, and stay in our own lane. Hard to do, perhaps. Often we do find ourselves comparing ourselves to other farmers. Why is it that comparing ourselves to other farmers doing similar or different things can be damaging?
Yeah, it's a great point, Hutch. I think sort of a popular, or perhaps one of the things that stops people from doing benchmarking, or perhaps one of the sort of popular things that tends to be espoused is, benchmarking is about comparing yourself with other people and other businesses, and, finding out how you stack up versus everyone else. And our view on it at Farm Owners Academy is very much not that. It's that benchmarking is a tool to help you to measure progress in your business and help you improve your business. It's a base, it's about taking stock and identifying a foundation to move forward from, and then tracking how you go. And, I think the risk is when you start trying to compare with everyone else, you don't farm the same piece of land that they do. You're not starting with the same resources they are. Some people are farming 4th, 5th, 6th generation farms versus people that are, first generation just starting out in agriculture, and every dollar that they've got in their business, they've earned themselves somewhere. You're starting from very different points. And so if you start trying to compare those businesses in that way, you can't help but feeling dissatisfied with where you're at. But really what matters for me, and what I see as most important for business owners we work with, is the trajectory that they're on and the progress they're making from their starting point towards their goals. And you can only measure that by looking at your journey, not at someone else's.
So it's one thing to talk about the game, but what are some tips? And you mentioned we talk about wins at the start of every meeting that we have, but what are some tips on how people can list out those achievements and celebrate them as part of their operating rhythm, or as part of how they communicate as a business?
Yeah, so what I talk about with our team, Hutch, is building a culture of winning. And I think that starts for me with every interaction we have, like what everyone sharing what's been the wins, start of quarterly planning meetings, start of weekly meetings, and we celebrate those. And it can be personal or business wins. It doesn't matter what it is, but just let's celebrate what is going well and build from there. So I think that's a key. Having some clear goals and celebrating those milestones when they come up is a good one. So figuring out what does that look like, what is important to our team. So it could be a celebration when you get seating in on time, or those sorts of things, or it could be celebrating when you've tried something that you knew for this year and it didn't work out how you'd planned, but you've learned something, and you debrief it with the team, and then having a celebration about what you've learned. So it doesn't just have to be about the things that go well. It can be, often in business, it's easy to do the things that are safe and the same, and that we know will work. But, to keep pace with what's going on and to move forward, we have to experiment. We have to try new things, and we're going to fail at some of those.
I think the key for me in this is every quarter, when you do get together for your quarterly meetings, arriving with a list of the business's achievements, sharing those, and then going around the room and encouraging the rest of the team to make sure that you complete that summary of what it is that we have achieved. It just means that 4 times a year, you're capturing those, sharing those, celebrating those. And over 3, 5, 7 years, some of our alumni list of achievement, Sam, from where they were to where they are, and then how they feel about themselves in their 7th year with us, but they're probably their 3rd generation in their business, because they've made that, they've put that on paper and they've got it up on their wall, and it's something they focus on with consistency. It can just change the whole frame.
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of the challenges with the Platinum program, it is a 3-year program, and we teach a lot of content over that 3 years. And often the common feeling for people as they come into their 3rd year, they feel like we've got to get our skates on here. We've got a lot to do, and they feel like they're starting to feel judging themselves against the ideal again, Hutch. But when their coach brings them back to, well, let's have a chat about what you have achieved in the last 2 years. Where did you start from and where you're at? It's amazing to watch their energy shift and the confidence that they have around themselves shift. And it's amazing what they do achieve in that last 12 months with that confidence.
Sam, just before perhaps we move on, a shout out to the team. What would you say to them, and what would you like to kind of share with our coaching team, our team of analysts, our support team? What would you like to say to them, given just their level of dedication and support to the business's growth over the last 3 years? We're arriving to our 10th year as a business in November. What would you like to say to the team that we've assembled, and just their level of dedication to the cause?
Yeah, from my end, Hutch, and what I would try to say on a regular basis is it's not any one person's effort that gets a result for our clients or helps our clients achieve their results and their goals in their business. It takes everyone in our team playing their role to the best of their ability and finding new and better ways to do what they do. And that's what inspires me about this team, Hutch, is just the new and better ways that they keep finding to help our members achieve what they're trying to achieve in their business. And, it can come from helping them fix a little problem or identifying where people are getting stuck and figuring out a new way to teach it. Or it could be, someone, the way that they interact with someone on the phone and how that helps them feel about their business and what's going on in their life. Like, it can be the smallest things, or it can be something quite big.
Thanks, Sam, and I agree. To all of our coaches, our analysts, our support team, just thank you so much for all that you're doing in support of farming families across Australia and into New Zealand and wherever we are. But just, your level of dedication and your level of care for all of our members and for each other and for this business is greatly appreciated. So, Sam, one of the roles you play with us is you're part of our benchmarking and analytics team, and working actively supporting our members to understand their benchmarks and analyse key decisions for growth in their businesses. The dynamics, the fundamentals may not have changed, but the dynamics certainly have. We've seen inflation, we've seen interest rate rises, we've seen softening commodity prices, and maybe a change in the environmental dynamics for some. What are you seeing as you sort of move across our client base and you're helping them debrief their benchmarks and analyse key decisions?
Yeah, thanks, Hutch. It certainly has been a tough period for the last 18 months. I think probably the 3 years preceding that have been as good as any in agriculture in terms of the commodity price and interest rate environment that we were in, and a few pretty good seasons. So your business model, irrespective of how well it was performing, irrespective of how strong it was performing okay. Like, most people were finding that they had spare cash flow and those sorts of things around, and their balance sheets were improving really strongly with land prices going up and those sorts of things. So that's all changed quite a lot in the past 18 months with commodity prices coming back, some of them down to sort of decile 2. So that means 20% of the time the prices have been below that. So they're very low. Now most are back around that 50%. Hutch, and in 13 interest rate rises in a row, and probably not looking like any sign of major reprieve in the short term. So, but interest rates are back at sort of long-term average levels. And I think the thing that we've been discussing with our members is this is normal. Like, you're coming back to a more normal commodity price cycle, you're coming into a more normal interest rate cycle. But it really is challenging a lot of people in terms of, is our business profitable enough? Is our business model profitable enough? And do we need to change what we're doing? Or, do we have adequate interest cover in our business? And what can we do about that?
Sam, I think what's happened is that a lot of people have undertaken an expansion step over that period. And so they're arriving into this situation in a different financial position than they were perhaps arriving into the last. How important is it to know those key financial ratios? You mentioned interest cover, liquidity, debt servicing ratios, all of those things. How important is it to be right on top of those rather than leaving those to the bank manager and the accountant to tell you about?
I think it's absolutely critical, Hutch, and we've just recently released some training. We've priced it very, very cheaply because we just felt it really needed for people out there at the moment. It's called the Cash Flow Optimizer Pack for farm owners, and it just teaches you how to budget really strongly in your business. And the framing, also the way I think about this, farming's not like a lot of other businesses. It's a seasonal business for most, and you might get 20 or 30 cracks at it over your career. So if things have changed, which they have, and you wait 4 or 5 seasons to figure out whether your business model works or not because you're just going to kind of do what you've been doing, you've missed a big chunk of your opportunity as a farmer to have a good profitable business and build a safe retirement for yourself or build wealth over time. So part of the budgeting process or the business model forecasting process that I think is really important is make those decisions and those mistakes in the spreadsheet and figure out a profitable business model that gives you the best chance of success moving forwards, rather than waiting 4 or 5 seasons and trying to figure it out, based on the results of last year.
So what is the CFO program about, and what does it unpack for people?
Yeah, so Hutch, it's really about helping you run a great business model forecast or a cash flow forecast for your business, and we give you a method to do that and teach you how to build one in a spreadsheet for yourself. Now, there's software programs that can help you to do that once you become proficient, but you need to understand the principles that sit behind that and how you use that cash flow forecast to make great decisions in your business. And it is a fundamental skill for business owners, for mine, and it's a really important one for business owners to master, for that reason that I just said, Hutch, that you don't have a heap of seasons. So, finding out in 5 years' time your business model doesn't work is a bit of a problem. Like, we want to be finding out now and calculating those key performance indicators on our budget to figure out whether our business is going to work.
Well on, Sam. It's been great to see over 500 people opt in and take up that and be using it to really interrogate the strength of their budgeting and cash flow forecasting. I think it's so relevant. And also, I'll share details and a link to that in the written notes with this podcast. And also, just for our listeners, in August, we'll be having our next business mastery webinar on surviving and thriving in challenging times. Greg and I will spend some real time going deep into exactly this discussion and looking at how you need to be stress testing your business model, what numbers you need to be looking at, and then what changes you can make to set up for optimum performance, even in the current climate.
Yeah, thanks, Hutch. I think one of the challenges is it's easy to revert to, price or season as being the reason why we don't have adequate cash in our business. And really what the cash flow optimizer is about is helping you uncover whether it is price or season that's the problem, or whether perhaps there's something else underlying. And, there's 6 other reasons why you might not have cash available in your farm business, and all of them are in your control as a manager. So, it starts with getting a profitable business model, and figuring out how to make that work for you. That works under a number of different price scenarios and seasonal conditions, all the way through to, improving your cash conversion cycle and the speed at which money comes in and out of your business over the season, to looking at whether you've got too much debt in your business. It's very easy to end up with too much debt in your business. And I think, as you've discussed, Hutch, that could be the case for some. And so then there's some real thought that needs to go into how you navigate forward from there. We go through all the other reasons in detail as well.
So, Sam, have you got an example of one of our members that have moved from being average at best at budgeting and cash flow forecasting that you feel like have really nailed this and the impact that it's had for them and their business?
Yeah, so Hutch, I had a nice discussion the other day with a couple of our Platinum Mastermind members who are in their 3rd year in the program now, and have been probably spent the last 6 months really leaning into this business model forecasting for their business. They kind of had their first benchmark done with us and their first debrief, and it kind of crystallized for them that their business model wasn't going to take their farm business towards their goals, and they couldn't kind of get the business to be as profitable as they needed it to be, or to support the owners in the way they needed it to, in the way that they were farming it. And it was a really great realization for them. I think they had in the back of their mind, and they'd been trying a few different things to kind of increase the profitability of their business, but hadn't really kind of put their finger on what was the issue. And they set about following these steps to really understand what drove profit in their business and their business model. They explored 20 or 30 different ideas of how they could improve the profitability of their business, and build out a detailed forecast for their business, and tested their assumptions at Hutch. And they came up with a business model that would see them be quite profitable, and they had a plan that was to grow into that business model over sort of the next 4 or 5 years. And so they sat down with the numbers and they looked at it, and it was a great plan. Like where they'd landed and where they were off to was a good plan. That they were going to have quite a profitable business model that suited their needs. But they had 4 or 5 seasons of losses in the process of getting to that profitable business model. And the challenge I put to them is, don't accept the loss in year one. What can you do not to accept the loss? And through thinking through that, and the counter kind of argument for them in that respect, or the counter thinking around this, was that they identified that given where livestock prices were at and what the opportunity was in front of them, that they actually could borrow, and their balance sheet was still strong, so they'd borrow a little bit more money and go and get into their profitable business model in a faster pace. And I was really proud of the way they worked through that, Hutch, and the way they thought through the different risks in their business and the understanding now that they have of the profit drivers in their business, and they've executed that plan. I'm really excited to see where they go in the next 18 months or so.
So Sam, just a final comment for our farmer listeners who are, struggling with that concept of, testing their business model and asking all the right questions at the moment around how they do drive profitability and performance. What would you say to them? What's the best place for them to start to really stress test the business model they have and get set up to make meaningful and lasting change?
It's a great question, Hutch. I think the first place is, if they've realised that they need to do something, is to not put their head in the sand and do nothing about it. So anything you do is going to be better than doing nothing. And I'd say go and educate yourself would be the first place to start. So go and get some training around financial literacy, or come along to the Top Producers 2-day workshop and learn about what else you could do in your farm business to run a more profitable, successful farm business model. Go and hang out with successful farm owners who are profitable, that are profitable, and look what they're doing different to what you're doing, and see what you can bring into your business.
Thanks, Sam. And on that learning journey, it'll be uncomfortable for a little while, and you might get it wrong for a little while until you get it right. But the key is to stay in the process and just make sure you've got those mentors and coaches and support people around you that you can stay in this until things like financial analysis, things like cash flow forecasting become a skill set that you've got. It is one of, whether we like it or not, the language of business is finance. And we've got to actually lean in, get our head out of the sand for some, and really make that skill set a real priority. Sam, again, thank you for putting the CFO program together, the cash flow optimizer program together. I'll share links, but I highly recommend it to all of you as a tool to help you make a quantum step in really getting control of your numbers and being in a strong position to stress test your business models at this time. Sam, we've covered a heap. It's been nice to reflect with you on the FOA journey. It's been nice to touch on that concept of the gap and the gain, and just to emphasize the importance of celebrating wins as a team to build team confidence and culture. And it's been great to be able to connect with you on how people can be really challenging their businesses and their business models in the current climate, and to touch on that CFO tool as a way in which to have people really sort of nail that for them and their families right now. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Hutch. You're welcome. And I think just one final message for everyone is that the best businesses are built in the most challenging times. So take this as an opportunity to really improve and understand your business.
Great comment, Sam. Thanks for your time, mate. And again, thanks for all you're doing for our community.
Thanks, Hutch. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Profitable Farmer podcast by Farm Owners Academy. If you're new to this show, be sure to follow us. If you've been a long-time listener, let your friends know about us, or come continue the conversation in the Profitable Farmer Facebook group. All the best as you grow your business and create your freedom farm. Until next time, keep being incredible.